Today on Vistage Live, we're joined by Brad Thomas, a visionary technology executive and board leader with more than 25 years' experience driving growth and transformation across cybersecurity, SaaS, AI, and enterprise software. As the CEO of the ASX-listed Prophecy International, Brad led a full-scale shift to a high-performing SaaS model, expanding the company globally and delivered sustained double-digit growth. His career also includes senior roles at Microsoft, Canon, Lenovo, and Telstra. Brad is also a 3-time Paralympian and recipient of the Medal of the Order of Australia, bringing a unique perspective on resilience, performance, and leadership. Brad Thomas, welcome to Vistage Live.
Wow, thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, wow, wow, indeed. It's quite the introduction. So why don't we start with sport?
Sure.
I don't know how many people here had the Seoul Olympics as such a sort of a critical time in their life. I remember it, but why don't you talk about your time leading up to the Olympics for you?
Sure. Look, I think Seoul was very interesting.
Yes.
When you think about Korea in the late 80s, it was a very different place to what it is now. It was still really just opening up to being much more commercial, much more westernized in its outlook, and the Olympics was a huge kind of leaping off point for the South Koreans into the broader world market.
Was that your first Olympics?
Yes, it was.
That was
Yeah.
You went to one,
Yeah,
and nailed it, didn't you? You did well.
Well, it's interesting because you never really know what to expect when you go into something like that for the first time.
Yes.
So I'd always been an athlete. I'd trained in athletics since little athletics, started little athletics down in Tassie, and really just did it because I loved it and ended up, becoming good enough to be selected in the Australian team in 88. But you really don't know what you're going to see when you get there.
And was the Paralympics was it a smaller team in 88, or it was still the same size?
Yeah,
perhaps
I think
it's higher profile now, isn't it?
I think I was lucky that I saw kind of the growth curve of the Paralympics.
Yes.
was part of that. Seoul was smaller. It was certainly less professional from a training and preparation. And, still lots of volunteers. Not fragmented. Sporting organisations all trying to organise their teams to get to the Paralympics. And now, of course, Paralympics Australia is a fantastic organisation, equivalent to the Olympic Committee, and really running a fantastic program to bring athletes in and get them high performing and then get them to the games and have a fantastic result and promote those things. So it has changed very substantially since, the late 80s to where it is now. It was great to be part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Are you still involved with the Paralympics?
Yes, I am. I'm on a board committee with Paralympics Australia. I have to say that they haven't called on me probably as much as I would have hoped in the last year or so. But it is such a passion project for me. I'm still very passionate about track and field. I'm passionate about the Paralympic Games. I'm passionate about success and competition generally.
Yes.
It's something that I'm really interested in and very keen to be.
And what was your sport in athletics?
I was a track athlete.
Right.
So track and field. So I was a 100-metre sprinter and long jumper, and I also ran the 4x1 relay.
Right. I have Googled you, of course, and I've seen you long jumping. Yeah. Amazing. And so I know you won medals. So tell us about actually the experience because you were young at Seoul.
Those were the days.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I was living in Hobart, not doing anything particularly spectacular from a career perspective. So training and sport was a big part of my life. And as I said, you don't really understand where you fit on the world stage when you go to your first games. And I was doing multi-events at that point. Yeah. So, most inter-club athletes will do, 10 events on a weekend to try and get points for the club to win the inter-club championship. Yeah. So I was doing multiple events. I threw, I jumped, I ran.
Yeah.
So I became a multi-eventer at my first games. I competed in the pentathlon, which is the amputee version of the decathlon.
Yes.
For some reason, they don't like us doing, pole vault or hurdles or things like that. So it was a 5 events rather than the 10 events.
Yes.
But they weren't probably my best events. The mix wasn't really great for me. But I was good enough to get silver medal in Seoul.
Yes.
Set the Australian record at the time. I don't think an Australian record existed at the time when I did that. But that was a fantastic experience, and that opened my eyes to say, well, here's someone kind of in isolation in Hobart in Tasmania, training for the sake of enjoyment, but that can be competitive on the world stage and do as well as, anyone from Europe or the US, even with some of the slightly worse, technical equipment compared to some of the rest of the world.
Yes, yes. And so then you went on to Barcelona?
Yep. Barcelona, not a great games for me. I was carrying an injury going into that. It was probably touch and go as to whether I should go or not.
Yeah.
And I think I made one final. I think I was top 8 in the long jump, and I competed in the javelin and bombed out really badly in the 100 meters. So it's just not well prepared going into that, and that's another great lesson.
Well, I was going to say, and then so your last games was
96 in Atlanta. And that was
that's right.
That was my best games. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was Atlanta. That's right. I had someone I knew who was in Atlanta, and you did really well there.
Yeah, so gold and 2 bronze in Atlanta. We set the world record in the 4x1, won the gold medal.
Wow.
I broke the world record in the long jump,
which
then got broken a few other times by guys in front of me.
Yeah.
But still performed very well.
Wow.
The individual 100, I ran 2 personal bests in the semi and the final. Ended up coming third by a couple of hundredths of a second, and just performed really fantastically. And I think the thing that made the difference for me going into that event was for the last few years, I'd had fantastic coaching and a fantastic group around me that I could lean on. And there's that competition inside the group, but there's also that fantastic support when, you're not performing at 100% or you don't feel 100% or the circumstances around you are not optimal. Somebody's there to say, come on, one more lap, one more run.
Yes.
Get your knees up, think about your form. All of those things just make those little 1% differences.
And so in Barcelona, you didn't have that?
No, in Barcelona, I still was training in Hobart.
Right.
And I moved up after I moved to Sydney after I got back from Europe in early 93. So I'd been living in Tasmania up until that time.
Right.
And the coaching wasn't as great. The facilities weren't as great. I probably wasn't taking it as seriously as I should have.
Yeah.
So all of those things, come together to give you a poor performance in Barcelona. And then you fix all those things leading into Atlanta and you have a great performance. So there's some great lessons there, I think.
Yeah, really. And did your parents go?
No, that's probably one of my biggest regrets. So my parents have seen me compete at national events here in Australia, but they never got to see me at a Paralympic Games, which is a shame.
Yeah, yeah. The parents are so much. I mean, we love it at home. Seeing the parents, that's the best part.
Yeah.
Gold medal winning, and then we go to the parents, and that's Yeah,
and my parents, I'm one of 3 boys.
Yes.
I'm the eldest of the 3, and all of us were mad keen sports people. My dad was a good sports person. He played cricket and footy. My brothers played cricket and footy. They did a bit of track and field. But I did a whole range of different sports, and my parents' weekends were just constantly taking us to sports events or training during the week.
Yes, it's the ultimate taking the kid to sport, then taking them to the Olympics, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Get up early. So the Order of Australia, when did that come in?
Well, that was a result of the Atlanta Games.
Yeah.
So, service to sport as a gold medalist in the Paralympic Games. So I really have to thank my teammates in the 4x1 relay for that. So, that was a team effort. And that's one of the great things about track and field. There is this combination of you have individual events where it's all you and you're ultimately accountable for your performance. And then there's things like the relay where you've got to rely on the people around you. and trust that they're going to do the right thing, and they've got to trust you that you're going to do the right thing to make sure that that baton gets around the track as fast as humanly possible.
I was in the stadium for the women's relay race at the Sydney Olympics when the baton dropped. It's just terrible.
We did that at the World Championships in the UK a few years earlier. We'd broken the world record in the heats, and then it got to the final, and one of us ran a little bit faster or a little bit slower. No names, but and the baton doesn't get round, and you go from world record in one round to did not finish in the next round.
So there's something actually about track and field, I think, and there's so many themes coming out from this conversation, Brad, but there's something about the resilience. So in long jump, it's not just you do it once and you win or lose on that performance. You have to keep doing it, and people around you because long jump, you do your own jumps, don't you? You don't sort of see the person, like in high jump, the person after you might go higher and you've got to go longer.
No, that happens.
It does.
And, the lead changes.
Yes.
Typically there's a big group that gets whittled down to the final 8. So you get 3 jumps and then the top 8 go through to the finals. You get another 3 jumps. And, you get to see the person that jumps before you. You get to see the person that jumps after. You could be in the lead and then somebody takes the lead from you, and then you've got to respond. So, it can be really exciting, but it can be very stressful too.
Well, it's quite a curve, isn't it? It's a real bounce effort because you're winning, so you're high, then someone's beaten you, so you go down, but you've got to get up again to go even higher.
That's right.
What is it about you? What is it inherent in you that makes you good at this?
I think growing up with a disability, in an environment where everyone...
Could I ask, were you born with...
Yes, I did it the easy way. Yeah,
right.
So from birth, no trauma, no car crashes.
Yeah.
So, the way I am is the way I've always been.
Yeah.
And, while you don't really accept that when you're growing up and as a teenager, it is just one of those things that you come to terms with and you move on from. But there's always... those around you going, oh, well, probably the best story is when I was born, my mum turned to my dad and said, well, it looks like he won't be playing football. Right? And, I did go on to prove my mum wrong, and I did play a few games of Aussie rules football, spectacularly unsuccessfully because I didn't grow up with that sport. Yeah. But I competed in a whole range of other sports. And I think one of the things that really drove me was nobody can tell me that I can't do something. And there's always that expectation, well, Brad won't be able to do this, or Brad won't be able to do that. And my whole life was about proving people wrong.
So that real drive, you can get to nature nurture, but you have that drive and that resilience. So how did that then translate? So we've spoken about it before. You decided not to go to the Sydney Olympics not to compete.
Yes. Yeah. So I was in the team leading into the games in Sydney, and I did really want to compete. Yeah. But I was getting a bit old and slow. I'd been promoted at work. My son was due to be born in the May of 2000. And you just have to look at all the things that you can do. And it was work, family, sleep, training, which are the things that I can give up. And realistically, it was the training. And at that stage, it wouldn't have mattered how hard I trained. I don't think I would have been as competitive as I needed to be going into the Sydney Games.
Yes.
And I was probably keeping someone else out of a spot at that point. Yeah. So it's a matter of saying, no, I'm done.
At my time.
I've been successful. It's time for somebody else to step up.
Well, 4 games would have been a lot.
Yeah. Particularly in an explosive sport like track and field.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's great. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. It's a wonderful story, and congratulations on those achievements. What is it though? So I've heard team, coaching, guts, bounce, resilient. Well, bounce, resilience. I've heard all of that. What have you really taken from your experience as a premium athlete into business? And what have you left behind?
I don't know that there's much to leave behind. there's a lot to take, and all of those things are really important. I think, first and foremost, you've got to be really clear on what you want to achieve and where you want to get to.
Yeah.
So that clarity of vision is the starting point. If you're not saying to yourself, yes, I want to win a gold medal in the 100-meter sprint at the Atlanta Games in 96 and have that really specific vision, then everything else that, kind of leads into that is flawed or misaligned and is not going to get you to that outcome. So, first and foremost, that clarity of vision is super critical. Winning a gold medal at the Olympics is not clear enough, right? Is it swimming? Is it shot put?
Right.
Is it soccer? So you have to be very specific.
Yeah, right. No, it's not enough to
it's
say I'm
track
going to
and
be the
field.
best in
It's
the world.
100 meters.
Yeah, right.
And then you have to start breaking that down. So what am I going to have to do to achieve that? And this is where going from that vision and having a goal starts to be broken down into an execution plan. And it's easy to have a vision, but it's really hard to execute.
It's really hard.
So if I'm going to win a gold medal at the Paralympic Games in Atlanta in 96, which I didn't, spoiler alert, I had in my mind that I'd have to break 12 seconds for 100 meters. And, as it turns out, there's an American called Tony Volpentest who won that, who ran 11.3 and broke the world record. I ran 12.02 in the final. But having to run 12 seconds, you go, okay, well, what do I need to do now to run that fast? How much do I need to be able to lift? How fast do I need to be at the 10-meter mark, at the 20-meter mark, at the 30-meter mark? How fit do I need to be? What's my body fat need to be at? How much do I need to weigh? All of these kind of milestones you need to start to think about and break down, and then work a plan to, well, how do I achieve that particular milestone? How do I get fast at the 10-meter mark? And then how do I get fast at the 30-meter, the 50-meter, 80-meter? All of these things have to have their own separate execution plan.
There's a lot of separate execution plan, and you're measuring progress, aren't you? Because
100%.
if you've got to get to 12 seconds and you're at, 12.9, you're measuring progress. And so then when you get to 12.8, you go, great, that's progress.
No, absolutely. And I think there are two things.
There's she who can't run, a meter, but anyway.
Not sure I can run these things either. There are two things there that I think are also super critical. One, you have to be absolutely ruthless about your own performance.
Yes.
And you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and go, that wasn't good. What do I need to do to improve? And then in sport, you'll have a coach that'll say, Brad, that set was terrible. Do it again, but do it this way. So you have to be really open to get often quite harsh, pointed criticism and not take it personally. It's all about the outcome. The fact that I did a poor job in that particular technique drill or didn't run fast enough in my sets, that's not about me. I just didn't do the job well enough, and I now need to go back and do the job slightly better than I did it the last time. So there's that constant review of both your own performance, but also getting feedback about that performance that you need to be open to constantly. And I've found many people are not open to getting feedback, don't necessarily review themselves as realistically as they should do, and often take it too personally. Now, the flip side of that is often the feedback is personal rather than about the job performance. So, it does go both ways.
How do you, as an incredibly successful leader, how have you switched then to that coach mode to be able to give feedback in a way that is going to help drive someone's performance?
Yeah, for me, as an athlete, I was ultimately accountable for my own performance.
Yep.
Nobody else could run the sprints for me. Nobody else could improve the technique. Ultimately, it was down to me. If it was a horrible day and it was raining and it was windy, I still needed to go out and do those things. At least 90% of the time. because there was somebody on the other side of the world that was doing that or doing it harder or had more talent or was, training in the snow or whatever it might be. There was always somebody else gunning for me. So ultimately, it's that accountability, that self-accountability that you're trying to encourage. And it has to be about the performance and the outcome and the situation. It can't be about, well, Steph, you did that really, you were terrible when you did that, or you said this very badly. You have to take it to a situation where you say, okay, this was the outcome that we achieved. What could we have done differently to achieve a better outcome? So people can, really internalize the things that they need to improve.
And their own problem solving.
Correct, yeah.
Because it had to come from you when you were competing. Your coach couldn't say, do this, this, and this. And it had to be your experience. Yeah.
Just telling somebody what to do is never very successful. I hate to be told what to do.
No, everyone hates it, but boy, it feels easy as a leader, doesn't it? I've got an idea, you just do this, but it's really not effective.
And I was always very conscious in my teams not to make suggestions as the boss.
Right.
Because the boss's suggestion becomes a direction.
Yes.
Brad wants to do it this way. We're going to do it this way. Even if I don't agree with it, Brad said this is the way he thinks it should be done. Even if I'm not thinking that, I'm just making a suggestion. So I try not to make suggestions. And often in meetings, I will say the least because I want the team to come up with the direction that we need to go, or the individual to come up with 2 or 3 suggestions on what could be a successful approach to a problem, rather than me just saying, well, do it this way. Even if I have really, really strong opinions on how it should be done, I want them to get there, not be told.
It's really, it's so powerful. And there are people sitting in this room who have experienced me saying, here's what I think we should do. What do you think?
Yeah.
And, that's asking for feedback. That's not telling anyone. But I think that is an art that good leaders are always trying to master.
Yeah, and it's hard.
It's really hard.
One of the things that, there's always a question, what's one of your weaknesses?
Yeah.
And one of my weaknesses is the flip side of one of my strengths. So one of my strengths is I synthesize information really quickly.
Yep.
I understand the scenario and I make a decision on what we need to do about it and what needs to get done. And I can make that decision very quickly. And half the time, the rest of the folks in the room are still trying to understand what the problem is while I'm already off on a solution. And that's one of my weaknesses. One of my weaknesses early on in my career was that I would just leave people behind.
Yeah.
And that really made me change the way I approach all of these leadership scenarios. And it's hard for me because I've got to bite my lip while everyone comes to at least a consensus on what the problem is before we start solutioning around how we're going to solve it.
I've seen you bite your lip. I've seen you in a room full of people and it's been really interesting because I can see on your face you can completely get what the situation is and what the answer in inverted commas is. And I've actually seen you, Brad, physically sit back, kind of sit back in your chair and let it go on around you. And I've looked at you and thought, you know what the answer is? You could do this standing on your head. And it's so you have mastered that skill because I can see you doing it physically, which is interesting because we've talked about that before about, sitting back or put your hand over your lips so you stop talking or whatever, because it is a challenge. And I can imagine then how has that helped you grow and develop leadership teams around you?
In my last company, I would say to everyone, good ideas can come from anywhere. If people never get a chance to advance what could be a good idea, and it might be a terrible idea, but it could be a good idea.
Yeah.
But if they don't get the chance to speak, we'll never find out. And they won't get the opportunity to learn and improve if they never get the chance to speak. And often this will be pitched in a diversity or inclusion type framework. But for me, it's really just about, it's fairness. If people have got a seat at the table, then they have to be given a chance to speak. And, if we're not doing that, we're doing the business a disservice. We're doing the company a disservice, and we're doing the individuals a disservice because we hired them for a reason, right? They're smart, they're competent, they're driven, got a good attitude. Why would you stifle that just because you want to move on quickly? No, just take the extra 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it takes. Get all the ideas on the table, and then you can work out what's the best way to attack the problem.
I've heard, I've spoken directly with Jim Collins actually and heard him say, and ultimately it's not a democracy. So a good leader says, I've heard this, I've heard this, I've heard this, I've heard this, and this is what we're going to do.
100%. 100%. And that's always a challenge with a leadership team with a bunch of intelligent, strong individuals that often have, an agenda for their part of the business or a preference for their part of the business. And you have to have that cabinet unity. You have to say, yep, we're going to get all the problems out. As a group, we're going to make a decision on what we're going to do about this this opportunity or this challenge. And once we've decided, we're all in. Right? We all have to be aligned around that. If it doesn't work, fine, we'll change. But, you have to give it a red hot go as a team together and then constantly reevaluate. I think that's the other thing from sport that you take is that if your training's not working, if you're not improving, if you're not getting faster, if you're not getting stronger, if you're not becoming more competitive, then you've got to do something different. There's that constant reevaluation that comes from sport that, I was very keen on bringing into business.
Yes.
Because too often people have a plan and they stick to the plan, but the plan doesn't work.
And just saying, just go faster. Just do more of the plan. So it's not, you can't do that.
Doing more of the same thing that's not working is not a plan for success.
No, it isn't. It isn't. Really interesting. And it's probably a whole rabbit hole to go down, but the thing about, I'm thinking of James Clear, who talks atomic habits, and he talks less about, the big goal. It's just the small steps along the way. But I'm thinking about, well, no, I'm going to win a gold medal in Atlanta in the 100 meters. That's a pretty specific, smart goal.
Yeah.
And what I like about it is the clarity of it. When you said that to the people around you, they knew what you were talking about.
Yes.
So you've talked about a lot about how you may well be or not, but you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. Which brings me to the next part of your illustrious and very interesting career, Brad, which is becoming a Vistage chair. And we're really thrilled to have you in the community. It's really exciting. So tell me, first of all, why a Vistage chair for you?
Well, I think it is that transition from player to coach and from, coach of one business to coach of many. And I think it's bringing some of the learnings we've talked about today to companies that maybe haven't been exposed to either elite level training or even some of the large corporate processes that, I've been lucky enough to have access to from some of the companies that I've worked with. And having been the CEO of a, medium-sized business, you'll take all the help you can get. And I really like the whole model where you've got a group of your peers who are there for themselves, but also for you. Right? And I think one of the things that's most impressed me in the few meetings that I've been at is how quickly people are prepared to share really intimate, both business and personal information on the understanding that this is to help us all. It's to help me, but it's to help us all. And I think this is one of these aspects of human nature that's always fascinated me, if you genuinely go up to someone and say, hey, I really need your help, the human instinct is to say, how can I help? And to give assistance. And I think that's really been shown really clearly in the few meetings I've had with the Vistage groups, both my chair group and the group I sat in on, how willing people are to help.
The trust, we talk so much about trust at Vistage, and it is really a surprise how quickly people slip into that. They feel safe in that environment and are very trusting with what they'll share.
Incredibly. You know, the first meeting I had was a room full of strangers.
Yeah.
They'd never been together before, let alone being a group that'd been established for years and really understood each other. These are complete strangers, and they were talking very openly about the challenges in their personal lives, the challenges in their business lives. And I thought it was really interesting because most of them actually already knew the things that they had to do. They just needed a bit of permission and a bit of a push to do the thing that really deep in their heart they knew they had to do. And I thought that was a fascinating dynamic in really a group that was embryonic and just forming. So
Plus I know what you're talking about. So I think that a small or mid-sized business owner or CEO would be very lucky to be in your group. Who are you looking for?
Look, my passion is around growth, innovation, product development, international expansion. I'm very growth focused, very growth oriented. And my background before getting into leadership was in sales and marketing, product development. So, I just love innovation. And more than anything, I love taking Australian innovation and taking it both nationally and internationally. In my last business, we won Austrade Export Awards for advanced technology. 85% of our revenue came from international markets. So taking Australian innovation to the world is something I'm really passionate about. And I'd be excited to have companies that have got international aspirations as part of the group. But anyone that wants to grow I think is going to get good value.
Absolutely. It's going to be an aspirational group with an aspirational chair at the helm. Brad, what a wonderful story, and thank you. We don't often get to have this level of elite sport at Vistage Live, but what a really good story with so many lessons that you've taken through your career. And I love your picture of kind of one to many, having a number of businesses that you'll be working with in the future. We're thrilled to have you, and it was wonderful to hear your story. And Brad Thomas, thank you so much for joining us on Vistage Live.
Thanks, Steph. It's been great to be here.